and welcome to another in depth analysis from the Batcave. Please make sure you like and subscribe to my channel. In this week's episode, we're going to be discussing the return of Michael Keaton as the Caped Crusader in the upcoming Flash movie. This is a film that's going to be due out in 2022, and it's going to involve many ideas about interdimensional planes of existence. It's going to incorporate different film interpretations of Batman and the Flash. And it's really going to seem to like echo what's going on in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. If you've been watching Loki, where Loki learns about these different dimensions through the time variance. If you saw the season finale, no spoilers. If I didn't want to spoil anything for anybody, but the focus overall for today is to understand the importance of Michael Keaton's return in as the Dark Knight, and I'm referring to him as the Dark Knight because for many people that were born in the late '80s and even '90s or even early '80s, the Michael Keaton really was Batman to many people, including myself. This was the one who basically started the movement of becoming, you know, a successful cinematic interpretation of the Dark Knight, and rising to what others would do. So in addition to understanding this, it also is important to realize this has actually been a very big week for people who have followed the '89 Batman. For one reason, Michael Keaton, as I just said, finished his all his scenes for the Flash. It was reported today, and then in addition, there was the release of the Batman '89 comic that was developed one of the writers was Sam Hamm, who also um, co-wrote the '89 Batman film. So it's very important that we understand why this week is so, pivotal for '89 Batman fans, especially those who look to Keaton. Um, so why is there so much hype with Keaton's returning in this upcoming film? I mean, we know that Pattinson is coming out in the Batman, which is due, I believe, later next year. Uh, and if you've been watching HBO Max, yes, we saw the Snyder cut with Ben Affleck's return as Batman. But what is it about Keaton that people are so excited about that he's putting on the cape and cowl again? In some of the recent interviews that he's done, where they discuss what it's feeling like to put the cape and cowl on again, Keaton says, this is something that, it feels like almost like second nature. He's explaining. In fact, he actually said the first shot he did was very reminiscent of a Tim Burton Batman film. So it actually leads me to believe that when we see Batman in this upcoming Flash movie, it's going to be reminiscent of the Tim Burton Batman. So we may see him come out with his wings, or just, just in a way that looks very familiar, especially for those who have been followers of the '89 and '92 Batman. But the other thing that needs to be brought into light is, it'd be interesting to see, well, if Keaton's returning as Batman and we're going to pay homage to that look to it, are we going to also have the Danny Elfman theme be reprised in this version? Much of the hype, though, about Batman, from this is for important for a lot of people to understand. Much of the hype about Keaton as Batman really echoes to even before he came out in the '89 film. If we go back in time to like 1988, when pre-production was underway on the first full-length feature film Batman, um, once the film was announced and it was said, hey, a full-scale film of Batman is coming to exist. Everybody had an opinion on it. In this case, who would be in the title role? Well, when Michael Keaton was cast as the Dark Knight, there was a firestorm, blowback, and uproar regarding, Michael Keaton uh, being portraying this comic book character. In fact, there was so much uproar that in 1988, on the front page of the Wall Street Journal, there was an article that was slamming the producers of Batman, saying that Michael Keaton was the silliest choice. This is not where the character lies. It is wrong. In fact, it felt like they were producing a campy and comedic version of Batman, similar to the 1960s. I mean, after all, Keaton at the time, who had just been in Beetlejuice, which he was great in, but you look at him and say, well, is he really Batman? In the key to understanding how Michael Keaton would be able to effectively portray, and understanding how he would be able to portray this character, it's important that we ask ourselves this question: is the Batman film, this film, the '89 Batman, is this film about Batman? The answer is no. The film is not about Batman. It's about Bruce Wayne. That's what makes the film work. It's about Bruce Wayne and the tragedy of losing his parents and how he deals with that. And at the time, when you think about Batman, you're thinking obviously about a big, brooding character, muscularly built. The problem with casting Batman, a character as for the role of someone that would be in the cape and cowl, is the typical casting at that time would probably have gone to action stars like Steven Seagal, Jean-Claude Van Damme, um, Sylvester Stallone, and these are guys that are known for at the time for being in action films. The question is, with these individuals like Van Damme, Stallone, would they need to actually dress like a bat to be effective? No. But why would they need to dress like a bat? But with Michael Keaton, he would need to dress like a bat to be effective, to be feared by criminals. Why would Clint Eastwood or someone like that need to go out and put fear into the hearts of criminals by dressing like a giant bat? Psychologically, the psychological profile suggests that they wouldn't. But with Michael Keaton, he would. In fact, director Tim Burton, has said that he didn't know how to put a serious actor into a Batman costume, but with Mike, without getting laughs from the audience. But with Michael Keaton, he knew that he would be able to portray the uh, the pain, paranoid, the look of Bruce Wayne being in this horrible mental state after all losing his parents and all that, and people would buy into, audiences would say, yeah, he would go out and he would fight crime dressed like a bat. He would make a convincing, dramatic Bruce Wayne. So that's where it went. In fact, one of the things that I've always liked about Michael Keaton is, he's not he would not be characterized as an action star. He is a comedian, thus right. He's done comedies, as I said. Look at his work in Beetlejuice, but then also look at other work that he's done, um, Mr. Mom, even most recently in The Founder. This individual doesn't look like a real menacing character. But when I was a kid and I saw him dressed up as Batman, I was like, wow, he looks like dark and scary. In fact, the whole way they in the first Batman film where they shadowed his eyes, it was like, yeah, this is really creepy. It's amazing that Keaton would be able to do that at the time. And I remember thinking that, like when I was first saw the '89 Batman, I believe I was like 5 years old with in my grandparents' house. Yeah, obviously I didn't know any of Keaton's other work at the time, but yeah, it was a convincing Batman for me, and it laid the groundwork for other individuals, whether they're good or bad. It's not a matter of a discussion on whether who's the best Batman. But I'm just from this point of view, I'm just looking at who started that mold in being able to make Batman into, or Bruce Wayne into, a realistic cinematic character, not in terms of animation or comic books, but in terms of film. So where are we hoping to see? What are we hoping to see with Keaton's return to in the Cape and Cow? Well, first of all, I'm eager to see how this is incorporated into the Flash, the film. I mean, it'd be interesting to see how, after all these years of not seeing Michael Keaton in a Batman costume, how he's going to present himself. Specifically curious regarding the mannerisms that he would portray. If you've ever seen the 89 and 92 films, when he's dressed up as Batman, very little dialogue, very low voice. A lot of his depiction in the Batman character was based on a lot of his physical movements, particularly with the cape, his neck turn, the inability of not being able to turn his neck. So, what is referred to by some Batman fans is the bat turn, because in order for him to turn, because he couldn't move his neck, he would have to move his entire body. So, I'm curious if those elements are going to be incorporated into it. And once again, because we're dealing with this whole idea of multiple universes, which is becoming a big thing now throughout many comic book interpretations, I'm curious to see where this is going to go. I mean, this is the Flash film, and the primary character is the Flash, but the question we have to ask is Michael Keaton's performance as Bruce Wayne and Batman, is it going to overshadow the main character of Barry Allen, the Flash? Keep in mind there is more than one Barry Allen interpretation of Barry Allen in this film as well. So I'm curious to see where this goes. I already am excited to see that they're bringing the 89 Batmobile in, and they're incorporating elements of the 89 Batcave in there, which, if you want to have an idea of what that is, go view the original film. You can find clips of it on YouTube, and you'll see exactly where it's going. A lot of people say, well, it doesn't measure up to what we've seen with The Dark Knight, The Dark Knight Rises. That's okay. I've enjoyed The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises, Batman Begins. I've enjoyed every interpretation of Batman, whether we're talking in the film or in the comic books. But the thing to understand for a lot of children, especially ones that grew up in the early '90s, Michael Keaton was Batman to us. Or even if with Kevin Conroy coming into the animated series, because this is all we had. I mean, as a dark and serious Batman, the only other look we can go to is, of course, Adam West, or the various animated versions that we saw throughout the '70s and '80s. So I'm curious to see where this is going, because there is a market for people who want to see Keaton come back as Batman. And I'm curious if the demand is seen there, that, yeah, this is something that Warner Brothers and DC could see. Yes, this is going to be popular. This is going to make money. We have our devout fans out there. I'm curious where they go with that. Maybe they'll make new Batman films. There's a push right now to bring Keaton back in a full length feature film regarding the Batman Beyond story, or the Batman of the future with Terry McGinnis. So the question is, are we going to see that? Because oftentimes little things like this in films do raise the possibility that something else is going to be coming on the horizon. This is hinting at that. We've seen that before with other films. So I'm curious to see where that is coming. In fact, one of the things I want to mention in another podcast I'll do is the collectible company NECA, NECA, is been producing 89 Batman novel collectible items. They just came out with the Batarang last year. They're going to be coming out with the grapnel launcher in a couple of weeks. They came out with the animated series grapple launcher. So it's not like the companies are oblivious to the fact that Keaton's Batman is still popular today, and there's a demand for it. But once again, the emergence that all those kids that grew up watching Keaton are now full adults. It's curious to see where the film studios and the collectible companies and the toys, where they're all going to be going, and the comic books, where they're all going to be going in the far off distant future. So that wraps it up for today on this week's episode. We will meet again at another time to talk in depth at regarding various topics surrounding pop culture, comic books, films, books, novels, video games, collectibles, toys. As always, any questions and feedback is always appreciated. And I thank you for tuning in. Have a great evening. Take care.